Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Giuseppina, and I am an intuitive healer. If you haven't already, I would appreciate if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. So, today, what is the topic? Today, the topic is going to be permission to take up space. And this is going to be, I would say, primarily for women. Um, and the reason I say this is because we have such deep rooted programming for women, specifically in this patriarchal programming society paradigms, where women have this deep programming where they cannot take up space, or rather, they didn't have permission to take up space. And so, that really deeply embedded programming, how does that affect us today in this day and age? Even though we feel like we're, modern women in this like new age, like timeline and things like that. Let's see how that affects us. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a quick example of something that happened to me that really struck a chord with me, and that kind of gave me this really profound aha moment that I just was the inspiration of this video. And so, I'm someone who has been doing healing for a very long time and have a very good grasp, or rather, connection and awareness with myself and of everything around me. And, that has taken years to really kind of establish that kind of depth within myself and with everything else. But with that being said, there was still something that I really did not grasp. And I finally did the other day in such a profound way. And so what ended up happening was it's 555 on the little time there. So lots of changes happening. We're in this eclipse energy still, so it's quite intense. Hands up if you've been having like some insomnia lately too. All right, so something happened where I was cleaning a week ago or the other day, can't remember how far back, but I was cleaning and I found on top of my fridge a box. There was an envelope with money. Now, it wasn't like a huge chunk of money, but it was like quite a bit of money, just like under $100. And it was something I had collected for something like years ago. Like I'm talking like 15 years ago. And I was just like, why is this here? And it was meant to go for a donation for something. However, that thing like has passed so long ago. And since I have been like, struggling financially as I am, starting out my own business and practice, I sat with that for a moment and I'm like, I'm going to use this money because I really need it right now. But I will pay it forward. When I have the extra money, I will leave this envelope here and then I will put that money and donate it to something else because I can't really donate it to that thing anymore. So I sat there, um, and I was washing the dishes. And while I was washing the dishes, I was just kind of mulling over in my head. I'm like, what could I possibly like pay it forward to? Like, let me think of ways. Like, who can I pay it forward to? Like, what would be a good place to pay it forward? And then with the most clear and like concise messaging, I don't like whether it was my higher self or my guides, right away, like the message in my head was so loud and clear, just came in like just very loudly, not like audibly loud, but just knowing there. And the message was, why, well, or I said, or you can just pay it forward to yourself. And it was just like this thing, a standalone message while I'm sitting there, like kind of, just washing dishes and thinking about like what can I do with this money? Who can I give it to? Or whatever. And then as soon as that thing came in with, or you can just pay it forward to yourself. And it wasn't something that I was consciously like saying to myself. It was coming from something else, whether my higher self or like I said, my guides or something. But the message was very clear. And it struck me in such a profound manner. And what struck me about it is, or you can pay it forward to yourself. Now, the reason that was so profound is because we often set up time to do things for ourselves. We heal and we say we're doing self care and things like that. And we, do all these things to give ourselves support and stuff like that. But while we are doing all those things, deep within our psyche, deep within our you know, who we are, there is deep embedded programming, especially those of us with people pleasing tendencies and things like that, who have very, very deeply ingrained programming that doesn't allow us to take up space, doesn't give us the permission to take up space. In fact, what often ends up happening is it feels like we're operating life from the sidelines, that we are always caretaking and curating things from the side, that we are not the starring role of our life. And in fact, it's like we need to give a reason, we need to give an excuse, we need to come up with valid points as to why we need to give ourselves these things. We need to come up with a list of all these things as to why we deserve to do a spa. Like, I've been stressed out, I'm going to do a spa. I've been this. And even then, there is so much guilt and shame and discomfort that surrounds all of that for women to take time for themselves, to take up space, to pour into themselves. And so the reason I'm saying all this is because despite us, doing all this self care and everything, the reality is that deep, deep down, there is this very, very strong programming that exists that doesn't allow us to like exist in our own space and time. That is ours. That is our space and time. That this is my space and time and nobody else's. It is mine and nobody else's. We've always existed under the the thumb of somebody else, under the thumb of man, and not being allowed to even work or have bank accounts or all these other things. These are quite recent things for us to have as women. We needed permission. We didn't have the right to vote and all these various other things. Like, there's so many things that we were not allowed to do as women. We needed permission to exist on all these different levels. And even then, we did not have autonomy on so many different platforms. And so, how does this translate for us? Well, it translates into us having incredibly deep rooted patriarchal programming that doesn't allow us to take up space and to choose for us and do things for us, that is solely rooted in the fact that I am deserving and worthy of it. So we say that I'm worthy, I love that. And we can talk all the talk and stuff like that. But the reality is, and I'm well aware of this as a hypnotherapist, is that we don't actually embody that energy, because deep down in our psyche, there's programming that is opposite of that, that contrasts that, the messaging that we're giving to ourselves. And this is why we still operate from the sidelines. This is why we feel bad about taking time for ourselves. This is why we sacrifice things. This is why we don't achieve our goals. This is why we have to come up with an excuse or reasons for us to do things when we don't need a reason. We don't need a freaking reason. We don't need an excuse. We don't need to come up with anything whatsoever as to why we want to do something or take up space, but only for the sheer fucking reason that we exist and that we deserve to be here and take up space. I don't need to operate from the sidelines. I don't need to choose to do something for myself because I've earned it and because I deserve it after accomplishing this. No, no, no. We can pour into ourselves without needing permission, just exactly as we are, just exactly in this moment, without having to earn that worthiness. And this is a programming that is so deeply embedded in most of us, and it takes so much work to really crack into that and pull it away and pulverize it and get out of that. And it's something that is so not aware. Like, we can work towards self-care all we want, but in order to get to that deep programming, we really, really need to go deep into our psyche. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of work. We can do hypnotherapy for it to get there quicker, obviously, but it's important that we get there, because the reality is that we have not gotten there yet. And the reason I'm saying this is because in that moment when I had that clear messaging in my head, I realized that after all these years of advocating for self care and that I'm strong and all this stuff, the reality is that I had underlying programming that honestly did not make me feel that way. It didn't make me feel like that. I had to justify doing something for myself or my needs, that there seemed to be this justification and guilt and shame around needing permission and having to justify my needs. Like, this is problematic because nobody needs to justify your needs being met and fulfilled. Nobody needs to justify pouring into yourself. Nobody needs to justify that or get permission for that. You automatically deserve that. Automatically, just exactly as you are, as who you are. And so the conversation around this is, how do we shift that as women? How do we take up space? How do we feel comfortable to embody that energy? Well, by chiseling away at the things that make us hold back, that make us hold back that energy of who we are, that wild woman, that strength, that, fire within us of who we are, chiseling that away. And how do we do that is by quieting our mind, by paying attention, by listening, by seeing the messaging that occurs around us and inside of us about things, by feeling in our body how our body feels when we want to make choices and decisions for ourselves, how we open up or close off to it, how we expand or contract with things. All these different things help us to discern and decipher what is going on in our internal world. And by doing these things, we can slowly unravel and um, just kind of pull apart these threads that are not ours to carry, that we have been thrust into many, many years ago in this programming, and start to unravel that. We can begin to feel comfortable in our power. We can begin to take up space. We can begin to relax our shoulders and know that we have every right to take up all the space. I don't need to be on the sidelines. I can be dead center. I can be the one who is in charge. I can be the one who is the captain of my ship. And I don't need permission for that. I don't need permission. I don't need to justify it. I don't need an excuse or a reason. It just is that I am the captain of my ship and I can pour into myself in any way that I need to, and so can you. So, the discussion here is shifting this energy. How do we shift this energy? By paying attention, by giving ourselves love, by giving ourselves grace, by being present, by being still, by being very aware, and by creating boundaries, but not just boundaries for other people, but boundaries for ourselves. These are all different things that we can do to help shift it. We can have different conversations with other women. We can change our conversation with ourselves. Be mindful of the language that we are using with ourselves, that we require permission to do things. We do not require permission to do anything, absolutely anything. So, once we begin to unravel all of those things and we can relax our nervous systems and fill up that space, then you begin to operate from a truly authentic place of being able to align with what's really for you and not because of this sense of obligation or programming of what you need to be or how you need to show up with. Because every time we follow a path in our lives, we will always be led to going towards something under the programming that we have within. So by changing that programming, we can fully move into something in our own energy in a way that really allows us to stand in our personal power. And by doing that, we can actually show up fully in ourselves with our gifts, with our capabilities, and with all the things we have to offer. And it doesn't mean that, you need to have something to be deserving of that. You already are deserving. But my point is, when we can show up in that way, without needing the permission, without having excuses or justification, all that stuff, without the judging and the shame and being in the sidelines and, censoring ourselves or holding ourselves back. We have this beautiful space and opportunity to show up exactly as we are, authentically and wildly, just you. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is, because there isn't that much of that, unfortunately, happening right now. People are operating off of, like, these false personalities and false versions of themselves based on all this different programming and stuff like that. So, this was a long video and I had a lot to chat about, but essentially, the message is no matter how much work we think we have done, or we think that we're strong and I'm the person who, I can speak up for myself, stand up for I don't need your permission. But the reality is that we can say all those things all we want, but what is actually happening below the surface? What is the programming that exists deep within your psyche that is actually stopping you from embodying your true self and standing in that power? And in order to explore that, we have to really, really quiet our mind, quiet ourselves, and really, really become introspective and slowly allow ourselves to take up that space. Don't need permission. You don't need permission. So, this is the new era of taking up the space. No permission needed, no justification needed. It doesn't mean you're like gonna be like a complete a-hole and be like, I'm gonna go off the rails and be a jerk. No, it means that you're gonna pour into yourself now. You're gonna pour fully into yourself without needing a reason or justification for that, without needing someone's approval or validation or justification or reason or any of that anymore. Any of that anymore. You are going to pour into yourself fully and completely because you are fully and completely deserving and worthy of that right in this moment, exactly as you are. And there's absolutely nothing that you need to do to gain that. Nothing. Exactly as you are. So that is the message today. I hope that you take it. I hope that you really sit with that for a moment. I hope you can find a way to embody that in your life, because you deserve that more than anybody else. Okay? Have a very beautiful day. If you want to work with me and do my hypnotherapy program to help you with these types of things, feel free to send me a message and we can talk about it and have a free consultation and chat. Otherwise, have a beautiful day. Subscribe to my channel and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.